right, here we go. So today's going to be a little bit of a special Live Your Ideals episode. But I want to start off by just sharing some thoughts that have occurred to me recently. I was cleaning out an old backpack and I came across a couple things that were somewhat nostalgic. It was my old What Would Jesus Do bracelet, as well as the Lord's Prayer bracelet that I used to rock. And I also found a little Jesus fish, little piece of metal that I used to carry around with me as well. I think it's in my pocket right now, unless I lost it. But at any rate, I found those things and it made me think about the person that I used to be when I was younger. And the person I used to be was someone who, oh, here's my little Jesus fish. So anyway, um, I used to be someone who I still deeply, deeply love Christ, but what loving Christ meant to me has changed over time because the more I wanted to show love to Christ, the more I felt compelled to love other people. And the more I loved other people, the more the people I was originally included with excluded me. And I've experienced this several times in my life, and I've shared this with folks in the past. But what hit me yesterday when I found these old talismans, if you will, that kind of brought my old self back to me, I kind of got curious, like, what happened to that guy? And it's not just the experiences I had of people rejecting um, the openness that was becoming really evident in my heart. It wasn't just that. It was something more. Maybe we can call it an innocence. And I remember my ex used to say that I was stupid because she said people used to play me. They thought I was naive because I used to give away things so easily. And sometimes somebody would see something that belonged to me, technically, and they were like, man, that's awesome, blah, blah, blah. And their joy would make me feel so excited that I would give them what I had because I felt like it was bringing more joy into the world. And so I would just give things away. And I also would follow the instructions of the teachings. And what the teachings tell us is, if someone asks if you give it to them, right? Also says don't resist evil, all sorts of things. And I was raised to take the scriptures literally. And because I took them literally at first and assumed everyone else did, there were some things that came to me through the scriptures that I assumed everyone knew. One of them comes from Romans 1:20. And it basically says that everything created knows the mind of the creator, even to the eternal Godhead, meaning that we know the thoughts of God, that all the invisible attributes are known by the things that are created. That's in the Bible. I took it literally. So I assumed that on some level, just because I was created, I understood to some degree the invisible attributes of God, even if I couldn't 100% uh, frame them or name them. Then in Ephesians 3, round 3:19, somewhere in there, Paul, he prays for people and he says that he prays that they be filled with all the fullness of God through understanding the breadth, the width, the height, the depth of the love of Christ. And taking those things literally, I also assumed that all beings have it in them to be filled with all the fullness of God, whatever that means. And so I walked around like that with the assumption that other people felt that possibility as well, that they took that literally, that they could be filled with the fullness of God, that they took literally that all things created know the eternal mind of the creator, because that was in there. But I started to, it took me about 25 years of, I just turned 50. So I'm been out of the evangelical church just as long as I've been in it, or I was in it. And the realization that people did not really take it literally, and that the beautiful things of it that could be expansive and could make for a beautiful world weren't taken seriously. And then the other things that create harm were taken seriously and sometimes literally. So today I'm about to bring in my special guest who is closer to that mind than a lot of folks. And it's my little one here. You can say your name.
Okay, Silva.
Yeah, so I'm glad to bring her up here because when we hang out, I feel like a kid again. Like we were out at the park this morning and we were making up games. We tend to do that. What's some of the games we've made up?
We've made
Hold the
up,
microphone.
we've made up, like, we made up this game where we had a stick and we had a piece of paper and we were like trying to play tennis, but with that. And we make up games where we get like balls or something like that and try to get through stuff instead of actually playing basketball.
Yep. Yeah, we play like little games. We make up little stuff all the time, and it feels fun because we just get to hang out in the imagination. We found some tennis balls this morning, and we were like, "What if the tennis balls found us? Like, what if the tennis balls made us come to it so that they wouldn't just be laying on the ground?" We just have like interesting little conversations like that. But something we did recently is we did something with Legos. What did we do with Legos?
We made an Iron Spider-Man like Lego set. It was hard.
Yeah, it was hard. And what was interesting about it, now let me ask you a question and hold your mic up so folks can hear you. How long do you think it would have taken us to make that Lego set if we just all we did was look at the picture, but we didn't follow the instructions?
It would have taken us maybe almost a year.
Yeah, maybe a year or more because it was so complicated to put that thing together. Like the pieces with instructions, it was complicated. So just imagine how complicated it would be without instructions. And it made me think that when I was younger and I, kind of took the word literally, as they say, um, I used to do a lot of things that were easier for me because I was kind of following these instructions. And it hit me. I used to think that everyone knew. I would say, well, everybody knows this because I was in the group of people who I assumed everyone was following the same instructions. But then I eventually realized that that wasn't the case. Have you ever played a game where people had different rules? No one was playing by the same rules.
Yeah.
What was that like?
It was complicated because I didn't know really what to do because they were fighting on the rules and getting mad at each other. And I tried to stay out of it, but then my rules didn't work. And yeah,
Yeah, and that's like natural. Like if people are trying to do something and they have different guidelines, not everyone's playing by the same rules. It gets really confusing and arguments ensue. What would you be like if someone told you they were playing by the rules, but you knew the rules, so you knew they weren't playing by the rules? How would you feel?
I'd tell them that they were lying and then I wouldn't play.
That's very profound. Yeah, you would say that they were lying, and then you wouldn't play. So why wouldn't you want to play with them if they weren't? If they said they were playing by the rules, but you knew for sure they weren't?
Because they'd be lying and I don't like they'd be lying, so I wouldn't want to play.
Now, what if they told you that you were lying and that they were playing by the rules, and they said you weren't, but you knew for sure that you were, and but then they told everybody that you were the one that wasn't playing by the rules? How would you feel about that?
I would probably just stop playing and maybe even like if I were at my house, probably either go home or if I were at my house, tell them to.
Tell them to leave. Yeah. So that's just very natural, I think. It's very natural. And it's kind of the place that I've been coming to lately is I know that for a long time, I strictly followed the rules. And I'm actually a kind of a rule follower, even though it doesn't seem like I am to some people. And what is that? Part of the part of the rule following is the rules of the teachings were love God with all your heart and mind and soul and love your neighbor as yourself. So I did everything I could to try to do that. And then I found that by trying to do what it said, the people who pretended like they were following the rules would get angrier and angrier at me and tell me more and more about how I wasn't following the rules. I wasn't a real Christian. I wasn't these things. And I started thinking like, okay, everyone knows this, but now they're pretending like they don't know it. And that's what I told myself for a long time, that they were pretending like they didn't know it. And I couldn't figure out why. because I assumed that they did because they all said they did. So that was very confusing. Now, how would you feel if, let's say you went to school and you knew that 5 plus 5 equaled 10, but everybody in the school was telling you that 5 plus 5 was 43, and you knew for sure it was 10. And even you put your two hands together and say, look, it's 10. And they just kept saying it's 43. And you already didn't want to play with them, but say you were forced to go to school anyway. What would you do? How would you feel all day being around those people? Would you start saying it's 43, or what would you do?
I would probably just give up and ask to talk about something else.
You just say give up and talk about someone else? Okay. Yeah. So I know that right now, one of the things I was struggling with was just like going back to the Lego analogy. There's a way to put that thing together, and with instructions, it took us what, like 5 days. But I mean, we didn't do it consistently, so maybe over time, maybe 4 or 5 hours, um, putting it together with instructions. And obviously, if there's instructions, there was someone who not only designed it. If you back up, there was someone that imagined it, designed it, broke it up into constituent parts, and then said, this is how you put these parts back together, put these parts together to construct this thing that was an original image or blueprint in that person's mind, right? That's the same for how it is to be human. That there, on some level, there's a creator who understands the best way to be a creation. And there's a certain way of doing it that is, if you just figure it out on your own, it may take you forever. But there's guidance. And I'm not saying you got to follow like the Bible or the Bhagavad Gita or the Quran or any of those other things if that's not your jam. But what I'm saying is that those instruction booklets that exist, it's probably because some people figured out their way back and then tried to make it easier. Let's just say, for example, someone went from one town to some other town far across the country and back. And so they were able to write a map. Now you could stumble your way from point A to point B and back. But if someone else created a map, wouldn't you rather use the map? Would you rather use the map?
Yeah.
Okay. So you would rather use a map unless you wanted to figure out for yourself. So I started asking myself, what if, just for a thought experiment, what if every person in the world, as the scripture says, that all things created know the eternal mind of the creator, even to the eternal Godhead? What if everyone knows, but they just want to figure it out for themselves? What if people, they lie, they do all these things, and maybe they try to understand what something is by first understanding what it isn't? What if all these people who are, from my perspective, very big hypocrites, maybe they're working backwards. Maybe they're doing everything that's the opposite of Christianity. And then once they fully understand what Christianity isn't, or whatever spiritual tradition that they're practicing, because it's hypocrites of all kinds, or people who say they are democratic. Like, what if people won't know what a democracy is until we don't have a democracy because they took it for granted? And so, and then once we have authoritarian, then they go, I don't like that now that I have it. Who knows? But what if that's the case? How would you change your life if you knew that people knew, but they were just trying to figure it out for themselves? So let me ask you. So say you're working on something with a friend and you want to use the instructions, but they don't want to use the instructions. Would you be able to accept that they just want to mess around and figure it out the hard way, and then you just do it the easy way? Or what would you do?
What I would do is I would like probably give us like I'd split the what we're supposed to do in half. So like not break it, but like I have my work and the other person has their work and then I have the instructions and they don't. And then let them work it out from there. And then I would and it's and next time we met back together when it was like when we were done, we would I feel like I know it would probably be wrong because they didn't use instructions. Also, back to the Lego theory, we have a Lego. I don't think you can really see it, but yeah,
Mm. So I think that's good advice too. So like you would still do your part using your instructions and let it be easy for you, but you would let them just go ahead and just mess it up and figure it out the hard way. And then when they were done, you would just say, okay, let's just reconnect when you're done.
Yeah, and then I'd probably end up needing to help them finish it
Oh, okay.
or fix it.
Nah, that's good advice. And I think I might start doing that too, because I know part of me wants to just give up on people who keep saying that they're saying that they know, they're saying they're following instructions, but then you look at the instructions and you can tell that they aren't following the instructions. This is a metaphor for life. So I think I may also do the same thing. I might take your advice and follow the instructions and then just say, hey, let's meet up when you're done. We'll meet up when you're done. And if you get stuck, I'll share some instructions with you that I've gathered. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know you're a very busy person. But I really appreciate having you up here. I feel like you just spoke wisdom from your heart, from your inherent. You're proof that what that scripture I said earlier is true. That all things created know the mind of God, even to the eternal Godhead. So we're not without excuse, and that we can be filled with all the fullness of God. You're proof of that to me because I know ever since I met you, ever since you were born, you've always, since you started communicating and talking, you've always shared wisdom that I'd be like, where did you get that from? But it was just there. So I just appreciate you spending time up here with me, sharing your wisdom from your internal wisdom. And I hope that I will live up to what it is that you think I can be as a dad. So thanks for being up here.
You're you're welcome. Well, now what?
Do you have anything else you want to say? You want to say anything to folks who might see this later?
Um, I don't.
Okay. Well, let me think. I'm gonna try to ask you one more question. Okay. Let's see. You're still pretty young. Okay. When you look at the way that a lot of adults are showing up in the world and you pay attention to some of the craziness that's going on in the world right now, do you have any advice for people how to deal with some of the craziness that's happening right now?
I think you should like find a way to put the anger or sadness or whatever feelings you're feeling into something else, whether it's like hitting like going on a walk and or like just sitting for a while or like maybe punching like a punching bag. That those are all ways to let out anger and sadness and whatever feelings you're feeling.
And then what do you do with the good feelings?
The good feelings, try to just embrace them.
Awesome. Thanks. I think that's a good place to leave off. All right. Appreciate you. Thanks everybody for hanging out, and those of you who may see this later, thanks to Makaya Silva for being a leader and a guide. You want to wave bye to folks?
Bye.
Yeah, yeah. So this is pretty cool. So thanks for being up here, and like, subscribe, and share. And I would say take the advice. Jesus said that if we can't come as a little child, we can't inherit the kingdom. So that's why I spend time with my kids, because I know that they are close to that reality at all times. And I'm trying to live from that place as well. So if you know young people in your life, learn from their wisdom, see how easily those things came to her. She didn't get them from a book. She didn't, make a bunch of mistakes and learn the hard way. She's just speaking from her internal knowing. So I think that we might have to start considering the possibility that all of us know, and let each of us who do know and take responsibility for knowing live in the world in such a way that invites other people to experience their knowing as well. So peace, love y'all. And I don't know what's next because I'm living by the spirit. So we'll find out. Thanks.